statewide, faith-based, community-driven streaming media. This is The Voice 17104.com from the Allison Hill District of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Now broadcasting community radio from Studio A and community television from Studio B on The Voice 17104.com.
Live from the Voice 17104.com Studio B, it's the Ron Chappell Show featuring news, conversation, and entertainment. Now, here's the host of the show, Mr. Ron Chappell!
Good evening.
Thank you, Pastor Chris Thomas. All right, how y'all doing out there? Good Monday evening. I'm Ron Chappell, and welcome to the show. Tonight we will continue with our Black History Month series. Okay, we have a very special guest host tonight. Now, we have an esteemed panel that's been talking about Black history, inventors and innovators, and we're going to talk about them all this month. And on the panel, we have two Harrisburg residents. One is a pre-law student, and I understand now a candidate for Harrisburg City Council, I believe, and that's Mr. Anthony Harrell, who's also an Army discharged Iraqi war veteran. The other is a Harrisburg business owner. She's a business owner, plus she's a property owner, and she's a nurse. And she'll be hosting the program tonight. Join us next week when Anthony Harrell will be the host. But tonight, our very special guest host is Miss Crystal Davis.
Good evening, family and friends. We would like to welcome you to the show tonight for another discussion about Black history and about those who have paved the way for us through their tireless effort and dedication and blood and sweat and tears and sometimes death to further the human rights and civil rights agenda for freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to sit in the front seat, freedom to vote, and at the front of the bus. We want to also continue to highlight Black inventors throughout history. Before I go any further, let me introduce our two guests tonight who will participate in the discussions and who are no strangers to us. I will start with the gentleman to the left, Mr. Harrell. Do you want to say a few words?
Oh, thank you. Once again, I'll be happy here to be on the Mr. Ron Chappell Show. It's an honor and pleasure once again to hear that voice in the darkness. And to seated, we have our distinguished guest here tonight who's hosting the show. Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure, honor to see you once again. And as I always say before, my fellow Americans, good to see you here. Hope you had a good evening, good day, good year. After the game, I know. We won't talk about it till another time, but it was a great game altogether. It was great. It wasn't a blowout, but it was great. So I wanted to leave that note and keep on going with the tradition of passing the mic on to the next individual.
Okay, Mr. Chappell, Ron, did you want to say anything else?
Well, I want to thank the two of you for taking time to be with us in the program this evening, and I hope to be a contributor to the information.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm very excited about Black history and all that I've learned through our discussions by our panel members here tonight, and also through my own study. I would encourage anyone who didn't get a chance to view the previous two shows to go back, and you can go to YouTube and just type in The Voice 17104 and review those shows where we are discussing Black history and learned about some of the inventions that we talked about previously. Also, I want to invite you to call in and ask questions, share your insights, share your thoughts and ideas about Black history. Just, give us the opportunity to hear from you, and we will share the phone number this evening as well. So without further ado, we'll get started right now with Mr. Harrell, and I'll let you go ahead and start talking about maybe one of your inventions or what you want to share with us tonight about Black history.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk about my first person. I decided to look up, define, to talk about inventions. We'll talk about Mr. Lewis Latimer, born in 1848 in Massachusetts and died in 1920 in New York. He was the one who did the first patent on the light bulb and the telephone. I mean, as we all think before we think about the telephone or the light bulb, we think of Bell Telephone and give him all the credit for it, but it's not true. The person who actually did patent for was a man by the name of Lewis Latimer. Now, I found something special about him that, we found out about a lot of our ancestors we've been doing, the trials and tribulations they had to go through. For one, he was born to George and Rebecca Latimer, who escaped slavery in Virginia 6 years before his birth and was caught and went to trial. Now, this is the biggest thing that shocked me. Yes, it shocked me. And I hope it does you as well. I found out that he was defended. When he went to court, they captured him. He went to court. He was defended by none other than Frederick Douglass and William Garrison, where he was actually acquitted of all charges of what happened to him. So we're gonna talk about that person there. It was an amazing person right there, Mr. George Latimer. I think that's about it for him. But yeah, he's the one. Lewis Latimer, sorry, he was the one that invented the patent for the light bulb, which we use today, and also the telephone, which we used to use, but some people still have landlines. We still do use them, but a great individual, as we said before.
And could you pronounce his name again?
Lewis Latimer.
Lewis Latimer invented the telephone.
Yes, he actually did the light bulb and the telephone. Yeah, he's the one to get the patent for it. So like I said, we all give it to Mr. Bell we think that he did it, but as usual, we come to find out that at those times, our people could not hold patents and own certain things. So we found out, as I keep reading, I found out that we invented certain things that other individuals and other cultures seem to get credit for. That as more we read, the more I've been reading, the more I find out that we are actually the ones who came up with these things, and others just took the ideals and claimed them as their own and never gave back the credit. So that's what we're doing here. I think we should keep doing for here on Black History Month, is to give those credit, the true credit, to those who actually came up with the ideals for those things that we enjoy today.
Thank you, Mr. Harrell, and I totally agree 100%. I mean, we do more. We have done more. We have contributed so much to this country and the world, worldwide, with our inventions, and we're more than just basketball players and singers. We are so much more. We're scientists, and we're medical doctors, and we're astronauts, and just we could go on and on, as someone said earlier tonight, past February, and just go on and on throughout the year, acknowledging all of the Black inventions throughout history. So at this time, I want to give you, Mr. Ron, an opportunity to share with us what you have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Davis, and thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Mr. Harrell. Okay, how many of you enjoy ice cream? How many of you have gone to the grocery store and perhaps bought a half gallon of ice cream and it was frozen solid, and you brought it home and you took maybe a spoon, maybe a tablespoon, and sometimes bent the spoon trying to get the ice cream from the cart? Well, then, if you were blessed, or if you were blessed, you may have an ice cream scoop, which made the job a lot easier. Well, how many of you know that it was a Black man, a former Pennsylvania resident, that invented the ice cream scoop? Okay, I'm going to tell you about him. His name is Mr. Alfred L. Krall. And here's a little bit about him. He was born right after the Civil War, and he was educated in Virginia and worked for a time in his father's carpentry business. Though he always had an interest in mechanics, he was smart and driven and was sent to Washington, D.C. to attend Wayland Seminary, one of the schools that were established to educate newly freed African Americans. After school, Krall moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he worked at a drugstore and hotel. And he noticed that when they served ice cream at the counter, it was kind of difficult to get the ice cream out of the container. And so with this ingenuity and mechanical skills, he developed the ice cream scoop. And he had a patent at the age of 30. Now, the scoop went on, and it was a rave of the world, for those that enjoyed ice cream. And it was many, many different companies that started designing or started making ice cream scoops. And without ever giving Mr. Kroll the credit for having created that scoop. So the next time you enjoy using an ice cream scoop, well, just know that it was invented by a black man, a former Pennsylvania resident, and that's Mr. Alfred L. Kroll. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Thank you very much. As we continue to look into Black history and Black inventors, I'm just amazed at how a lot of the names are just household names. I know some Jones and Mallory's and Carters. I have a list here of Black inventors. There's one I thought I'd talk about tonight, and his name is T.J. Marshall, or Thomas Marshall. Mr. Marshall patented the fire extinguisher and the sprinkler system. Yeah, that's what I said too. I said, it's one of those things that make you go, and so these sprinkler systems are in large buildings, warehouses, and they're designed to put out some of the most dangerous fires. And I just thought, I look at fire extinguishers every day. I would have never thought that it was a Black man who invented it. These items we see every day, the ice cream scooper and the fire extinguisher and the telephone. Everyday items that we see just looking around our offices. It's just amazing. So I'm very proud to be a Black American, and Mr. Thomas Marshall patented this sprinkler system on October 26, 1872. So that's a little over 100 years ago. So I'm very proud. Moving right along, Mr. Harrell, I'll allow you if you would like to share anything else that you have with us tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Now, as you said before, we talked about inventors and inventions that our people, our ancestors, Black people, came up in this United States of America. We like to talk about the inventors. Also, I like to talk about those who broke certain barriers as well. When I come to mind, I think of one person I think of, we talk about baseball, Mr. Jackie Robinson, number 42. Born in 1919 in Georgia and died in 1972 in Connecticut. He was the first to break the color barrier in Major League Baseball. He played for the Brooklyn Dodgers. Now, in 1947, also a little side note, he played also, before he played baseball, he played football for the Honolulu Bears. And it's something that, like I said, that we keep reading, we keep finding out more things about him. He served in the United States Army. He was a first lieutenant in the United States Army during 1944. And also, here's another side note I found out when he was in the Army. While he was in the Army, he was court-martialed. You know, say, court-martial, what could he have done? He done what we all do, what somebody at that time would have done. They had the soldiers sitting on the bus in a certain position. And just like that lady we like to talk about, who did the same thing and started a revolution, he did the same thing. He was sitting on the bus and they wanted him to sit where? In the back. And refused to sit in the back, and he was court-martialed for not refusing to sit in the back of the bus. So there seems to be a pattern with us when where people are trying to, get us to where we're supposed to be instead of where we want to be. So even though that happened to him, said he was court-martialed during that time, he was acquitted of it, and he kept his position. He went on. He went on to do greater things. Like, for one, the greatest thing he did was when he played the baseball. He broke the color barrier there. He was the first to go through that. And it said later on, once he retired from that, he started something called the called the Freedom Bank. Was the first Black-owned bank that was started here in the United States by him as well. Now, I also looked up to find out how old he was. It was He died at an early age. He was 35 years old when he died. He died of, let me just correct. It should have been of, let's see. Yeah, he died of, it was like of it was like a health problems such as diabetes and a few of those things that go along with that. So, but yeah, he died at an early age. I thought he would have lived a little longer, like Willie Mays lived to, I think, 91. So, but anyway, still a great American there, Mr. Jackie Robinson.
Yes, it was.
Okay, I aired a moment ago, Pastor Thomas, would you show the image of Mr. Alfred Krall, please? Before I ask you to show the next one that I'm going to speak of. Okay, it's Mr. Alfred Krall, who invented the ice cream scoop and a former resident of Pennsylvania. Okay, the next person I'm going to talk about happens to be also a Pennsylvania native. He was born in Philadelphia in 1766. And his name is Mr. James Forten. It's Forten. Would you show the image of Mr. James Forten, please, Chris? Okay, thank you. Mr. Forten was a naval innovator. At the age of 14, he was working alongside his father on a ship, a sail ship. And he noticed that there was difficulties with the way men were using the sail to help navigate the boat. And he worked for Mr. Bridges. Now, Mr. Bridges was so pleased with his work and efforts that he loaned, he invested some money in Mr. Forten and sent him on to the Anthony Benezet's Quaker School for Colored Children. Incidentally, Mr. Forten started working for Mr. Bridges at the age of 8. And his father died due to a boating accident. And so Mr. Forten used his intelligence to help create a better sail to help maneuver the boat with. And it was quite popular. And, it helped to maneuver sailboats that went at great speeds. And because of his invention to help navigate the boats, he did make a great fortune, which he did not spend on himself, but he shared it with a lot of people who were not as well off as he was. And he also spent a lot of his money to help free slaves. Mr. Forten died in 1842 after living an incredible life. And his early years were devoted to providing for his mother. His middle years toward building his fortune and supporting his family. And his later years to uplifting his fellow man. He was not only a great inventor, but an even greater man. That's Mr. James Forten.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Ron, again, just so many inventors that I never heard about. I really get excited about all of the inventions by Black people. And again, it's not every day that we think about these inventions. Our children need to know about these inventions. A lot of times they look up to the basketball players and the Beyoncés and Jay-Z's, but boy, if they just knew about these inventors, Black inventors, I'm pretty sure we'd have more scientists, more medical doctors, more well-rounded children. Okay, I have one more, if it's okay, to mention, and maybe Pastor Thomas,
I
you
have
may
one.
want to.
Yes, ma'am. I have one ready.
Do you have
yes,
one?
I do.
Well, I'm going to let you go right ahead.
Oh, wow.
With your invention. I
Alrighty.
apologize.
So again, I got to get in on this action,
I
man.
didn't realize you had
Come on.
Go right ahead. You go right ahead.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I want to talk about a young lady by the name of Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first African American woman to become a self-made millionaire after creating a line of hair products geared toward black hair. Again, she created the first Madam Walker's Wonderful Hair Grower. So then she was born in 1867 and she lived till 1919. So that's Madam C.J. Walker, one of the first African American women to become a self-made millionaire with black hair care products. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that information. I remember her also. Madam C.J. Walker created that hot comb.
Yes, ma'am.
Never forget that.
Sure.
After having been raised and having experienced that hot comb, as many of us have, never forget it. But let me move on. I have a gentleman here I want to introduce you to by the name of George T. Sampson. I don't know if you can show a
What's the
picture of
name
him.
again? I'm sorry.
George T. Sampson. We can get a picture,
Sure.
Mr. Sampson.
Clothes dryer, I believe.
Yes.
All right.
yes.
Make sure I have the right person.
Mr. George T. Sampson, he's the developer of America's first automatic clothes dryer. I would have never thought. And this was a refining of a dryer. So there was something called a speed dryer for which clothes were hung over this dryer, and they used open flames at the time to dry the clothes. And the people complained about the fire smell and the soot and their clothes being burned and stained from the fire. And what Mr. George T. Sampson was able to do is refine the process with a series of suspension rods over a special design stove. Well, after his invention, and after he patented this invention, people were happy about their clothes being able to be dried quicker without the smell of soot. And after his invention, later on in the 1930s and the 1940s, the gas in the electric dryer was introduced. But Mr. Sampson certainly has my admiration for being the first Black inventor of the automatic clothes dryer. So if you think about it, we went from using fire to dry our clothes, to the automatic clothes dryer, to the electric and gas clothes dryer. So yes, we came a long way in history, but it's just nice to know that a Black man was a part of that history. So that makes me proud, very proud. Now, does anyone else have anything else that they want to share and have another inventor that they want to talk about?
I might have one.
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, that wouldn't be right now. Like I said, going trying to get into the test for thing, get you get in law school. It wouldn't be right if you didn't know those who paved the way when it comes to law, when it comes to those things. We talked about the medical field. Now we'll talk a little bit about the legal field. And I know this man I'm about to introduce to all of us is a man we all know. We're gonna know about the first Black Supreme Court justice by the name of Thurgood Marshall. Now I first heard of him even before I even read about him when I used to watch a show called the Good Times, and it was characters on there, Michael, G. Walker, JJ, and all them, and he had a little brother named Michael. And his family, his father's mother always wanted Michael to go to law school. They wanted him to become just like Thurgood Marshall. They spoke about him a lot during the show because Michael had showed a tendency to go toward that type field. It was like some would call him a radical, but he was just someone who thought about his people and where they should go and how their history should be written, things he should fight for, the injustice as he saw as a kid. So he figured we're going to gear you toward the legal field where you can do the most justice for us. So that's why I first heard the name Thurgood Marshall. he was a black show. So let's get on with Mr. Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall was an American civil rights lawyer who just served in the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court in the United States from 1967 to 1991. As I said before, he was the first Supreme Court African-American justice. Even though I'm gonna give a little credit right now to the young lady who became the first black female Supreme Court justice. Her name was Katana, I believe.
Yes.
Is that from correct?
Ketanji.
Ketanji?
Yes.
She became last year, I believe, or year before. So from 1991 with the first black man until 2022 with the first black woman. So we still striving ahead, still making strides. Now, what was he known for? Thurgood Marshall was a civil rights attorney. I mean, at the time when he used his courts, when he became in the Supreme Court, he used his position to fight the Jim Crow at the time and dismantle segregation in the United States. So that was, so as we watch and we hear about the justices being elected to being put in offices, we have to pay attention to who's being put in, and what they're being put for, and what they believe in. Because that strengthens and gets we want certain things to be happening in this community, in this United States, for us to move forward. When you have certain individuals who have great ideals, or some who look like us, who believe in some of the things that they know to be wrong, and when they get up there, they go make the change for them so that we can make those strides and get that equal footing on this ground in here. So, like I said, I'd like to talk about Mr. Thurgood Marshall. Every person so far I've talked about, I think the two, Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall, was played by that incredible actor who died not too long ago. Was it Mr. Chadwick Boseman, I believe? I think he did play both characters, if I believe. So, and then he brought, he brought Black Panther to life, but he is an extraordinary black individual as well. He was an actor, and he showed the light. He put a light on those two characters that I just talked about. So to give credit to what credit's due, Mr. Chadwick Boseman for bringing them both to light as well. For another generation to see. For a generation that didn't read, you can go to the movies and see about Thurgood Marshall and also Jackie Robinson if you like. So with that being said, that's what we're talking about, Mr. Thurgood Marshall.
Thank you. First Supreme Court African American civil rights attorney. Thank you for that. I have a list of inventors, and I had mentioned earlier about the household names that we're talking about. I mean, these names here, Thurgood Marshall. I know people with the last name Marshall right here in this city. Walker, C.J. Walker. I know Walkers. Jackie Robinson. I know plenty of Robinsons right here in the city of Harrisburg. So these inventors, these our ancestors, they are probably related to some of us throughout the United States. Again, these household names is just amazing to me. Let's see here. Samson, the gentleman who created the clothes dryer, the automatic clothes dryer, who patented that in 1892. Samson. We have the lunch pail, James Robinson. Here's another one, the mailbox. The mailbox was patented by a gentleman by the name of Paul L. Downing. And I have a whole list here, but just to name a few, rolling pin, the rolling pin that we use to roll dough, that was created and patented by a gentleman by the name of John W. Reed. Now I'm going to look for some other females here. We have Madam C.J. Walker, and on up this list, I see a Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone patented the ironing board. Imagine that. Yes, the ironing board in 1887. Newman, Lydia Newman, she was the creator, and she patented the hairbrush. So we can go on and on and on. It's just amazing, these household names of our neighbors and cousins, and it's so close to home. Just so close to home for me. We have the curtain rod support, a gentleman by the name of William S. Grant, and Osborne Dorsey, who created the doorknob, patented the doorknob and the door stopper. Osborne Dorsey. Friends, I went to school with the Dorseys here, up at John Harris, class of '82. So I'm excited about Black History Month, and I wish we could go on and on. We could just do this every day throughout the year and still not run out of people to talk about. Mr.
Okay, Ron.
Chappelle, should I turn this over to you
Brother
now?
Ron. Okay, I want to speak about another notable Pennsylvanian, and I believe you have her picture, Chris Thomas. She's American opera singer, and at the time she was considered the finest contralto in America. And she was born in February of 1897 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that's Miss Marian Anderson. Miss Marian Anderson. Okay, now Miss Marian Anderson was a renowned contralto, and she sang all over the world. She was very well received throughout Europe and the rest of the world. Okay, because there was so much Jim Crow and segregation back in the day, back when she was growing up, very few opportunities came to her to really perform on a grand scale. But in about 1963, she became the first Black opera singer to perform in the New York Philharmonic, perform with the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. Okay, she was a recipient of many different awards. She won many Grammys, and she was also given the Presidential Medal of Freedom. She also received awards from the United Nations because of her artistic ability. And I mentioned that she was also a Grammy Award winner. And she died April 8th, 1993 in Portland, Oregon at the age of 96. This Miss Marian Anderson, and I'm going to give you some information about her biography because I'm sure you want to look up some of these people that we're speaking of. And let's see. And her book is called, I have it here. I get the name of her book here. Let's see. Okay. I have the name of her autobiography. I don't have it right in hand, but I'll let you know the name of it, before the show.
My Lord, what a morning.
My Lord, what a morning. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Pastor Chris Thomas. And if I could say a note about Thurgood Marshall, Anthony, he was a civil rights attorney, as you said, and he had won so many cases against the government. It's like they couldn't beat him, so they enjoined him. They actually almost drafted him to be a member of the U.S. Supreme Court. That's a great Thurgood Marshall. Okay.
Do you want to say something else?
I'll let you go and after you.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, I was admiring the first Black astronaut in space. Now, his name is Guy Bluford. Okay, Mr. Bluford donned his partial pressure suit in the operations and checkout buildings at Kennedy Space Center in Florida, April 28th, 1991. Bluford, the first African-American man in space, first went to space in 1983. He was born in 1942, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, another Pennsylvania inventor. His education, he graduated from the University of Houston, Clear Lake, Air Force Institute of Technology. A couple of his awards consist of the Nassau Distinguished Service Medal and the Air Medal. He was born to Lolita Bluford and Guyon Bluford Sr. There's also the first Black female astronaut. I wanted to just acknowledge her. And her name is, here she is, Engineer Mae Jemison, U.S. astronaut, doctor, and engineer. Mae Jemison, her last name is spelled Jemison, became the first Black woman to go into space in 1992. So it took us a little while to get into space, but nevertheless, we are there. She was one of the seven crew aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour on a mission named STS-47. The youngest of three children, Genesis was born in Decatur, Alabama, but moved to Chicago, Illinois at the age of 3. And with that, I am going to ask anybody else if they have anything else to say and turn the show over to you. If you.
No, ma'am, you're doing a fine job hosting. You're the host of the program,
Thank you.
leading the discussion, but maybe we might want to open up the telephone lines
Sure,
to see if some folks want to call in with some Black history facts
sure.
or history.
Okay. At this time, we want to open up the lines to anyone who would like to call in. If you want to share your ideas, thoughts about the program tonight, or talk about an inventor yourself, feel free to call in. The telephone number is 717-889. What's the last?
7181.
7181. So please feel free to call in now and join our discussion tonight. 7181, 717-889-7181.
And actually, I can throw one more out there that I found interesting, that I don't know where my childhood would be without this next gentleman, born in 1949. I should show a picture of him here on the screen. His name is Lonnie Johnson, and this engineer developed the mega water gun in his free time while working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Library. At once, the toy dubbed the Super Soaker hit the shelves in 1990. Its popularity skyrocketed in 2017, and it had earned over $1 billion in retail sales. That's none other than Mr. Lonnie Johnson, born in 1949.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I actually bought a couple of those.
Sure, I think we
Super
all have.
Soakers for my friends and family members
Sure.
and children. And wow, that was an amazing invention.
Yes, ma'am. Still is, too.
Did very well with that one.
Yeah, pardon me, I'd like to ask Anthony, was I correct? You're vying for Harrisburg City Council?
Oh, absolutely, sir. That is 100% correct. I will be out on my petition, talking to my fellow Americans out there to find out what's going on and see if I can get over the ballots when you talk about things and try to make some changes here in this fair city of ours.
If someone wants to join your campaign, how would they go about doing that?
Oh, but first of all, you can get in touch with me at my Facebook page at Anthony.Harrell at yahoo.com. You come look me up on Facebook and you can catch me there. DM me, we can talk about it. But usually, like all the things, I run it, not that I run it alone, but I do this thing because I'm trying to show others that you can do things with the power of one, but mostly power of a lot. Does more, but you can let you know that you're not a victim. You can't be held down. If you really want something, go do it yourself.
Ms. Davis, you're also a candidate for it.
Yes, I am. I am a candidate for Harrisburg City Council. I'm a lifelong resident here of the city and graduate of Harrisburg City School District. And I'm looking forward to getting out there and presenting my ideas to the people, and just want to make the city a better place for all of us, all city residents. And I'm looking forward to starting the petition signing tomorrow, getting those circulated, and it's time to go. We got 3 months to do this, and I'm ready. It's going to be a lot of fun.
If someone wants to join your campaign, how would they go about it?
They can contact me directly at 717-889-6113, or go to my website, which is Crystal Davis for City Council, and connect with me there. So
I'm sure you will both do quite well.
Thank you.
thank you.
So you're both dedicated residents of Harrisburg, and you want to help do what's best for the city and the
And the
residents.
residents, that's right. So,
Oh, I want to say something.
sure.
Okay.
Right ahead.
I wanted to tell everybody, I mean, sitting, as we talk to everybody, we're talking about the dates, why the dates are important. Every time we talk about an inventor, we talk about the time when they, when they came, when they passed. But it was the dates why it's important, because I think one of the most important dates that we should talk about is January 31st, 1865. So what date is that? Why is that so important? Why should we know it? And that was the date the 13th Amendment was passed that abolished slavery in this country. So it's important that we know that date. Why? Because from that time, we have all these inventions come from that time, from that period, to show you that even with all the things holding them back, with all these, the whole country holding them back, without discrimination, segregation, because every person we just about talked about, they all had a form of segregation trying to hold them back in one way or another, and they still accomplished great things with, for this country and for us as a whole. So I wanted to say to those out there that think that, just because some things are holding you back, it's not, you can still overcome. People had a whole lot of things, like I said, from the woman who sat there on the bus, from those who made potato chips, from those who made, who made the ice cream for us, from those who did the dryer, from those who was on it, the first person to play baseball. They all had trials and tribulations of the public was against them. A whole lot of things that try to say, no, you shouldn't be here, should be in this space, and you shouldn't be trying to achieve what you are. But we have seen that our people, through all the thick and thin, through all everything tossed at you, that we're still come about and still can achieve great things. So let anyone tell you that you're not as great as you are. You're not the things that they portray you on the television or in the newspaper or anything else you hear. We're greater than just rappers. We're greater than just all these other things that we say we are. We're not thugs. We are inventors. We are scientists. We are doctors. We are lawyers. We are first times in things. We are the ones that make a whole lot of things that's in this country that run. We did it first and we showed the way, and others benefit. Everybody benefits from. As you said, when the dryer came about, you wouldn't be able to dry your clothes. If somebody, when he came up with the way, with the fire, whatever he did to make it automated, you wouldn't be able to cross the street. If somebody, when he came out with a stoplight, with a traffic light, so that you can cars can go. Everywhere you look, everything you see, somebody like one of our people started it so that we can now sit back and see the things, the fruit. We can now live off the fruits of their labor of what they have done. So with that being said, I'm saying the dates are important. And always realize that every time you think you get stuck, all adventures that we talk about during this time all went through something way worse than you probably will ever imagine. Way worse when you have a whole nation against you. So when you have just a few people say no, you want to go for certain things, say no, shut the door in your face, keep going. Keep going. Just always remember that our ancestors had it worse, so I got no excuse why I can't achieve.
This is one of my mantras, Anthony, and Crystal and Chris. You never let another person's opinion of you determine how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely.
And you can take the chain off your ankle by taking the chains off your mind. Yes, by taking the chains off your mind. Do you know when an elephant is young and small, they put a chain around his ankle, around his leg, and they have it hooked to a spoke in the ground. And try as he may, that elephant cannot pull away from it, as a small elephant. But when it grows to be a full-grown elephant, now big enough to trample 3 or 4 men, they can still put a chain on his ankle and put a stake in the ground. And because of the conditioning of that elephant when it was younger, The elephant feel like it cannot break free. It cannot break free. You know, and so that's all in elephant's mind, that he cannot break free from that chain. And so when you take the chain off your mind, and you can soar. You can soar. And there are people who it seems as though they intentionally want you to feel that you cannot, you know, that you cannot go any further than they would want you to go. And so the only limitations we really have on ourselves are the limitations that we put on ourselves. You know, so free your mind.
And we have done great things. We've done great things. And I'll tell you a little story about myself. I was, before I started my company, I was working as a nurse's aide. I had just finished nursing school, so I was waiting to take my license exam. And I remember working for this company, and I asked for a raise. And this is just a testament to what you were saying, Ron, about taking the chains off of our mind. And I asked for a raise, and they said no. And I asked for a raise again, maybe a week later, because I knew that I was worthy of it. I knew that I had the skills and that I could perform worthy of that raise that I was asking for. Well, I asked one more time, and they said no. What I did was I resigned from that company, and I went and started my own agency. I started my own company.
They're doing quite well.
Never underestimate the power, the word no. Never underestimate that word no. If you hear no, take that no and go on and just open your mind up. You know, there's nothing that we can't do. There's no goal that we can't achieve. There are no limits on how much money we can make and how many businesses we can start. There's just no limit. So that was just a testament. And that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, and I've been an entrepreneur ever since, because someone told me no, that I wasn't worthy of a raise. It wasn't a large raise, it was a small raise, and they said no. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go start my own company.
Quite inspired. And Chris also has a similar story. Chris, would you care to share? Because you know, I know about it. I know about the Buffalo Head nickel raise that they tried to insult you with.
Oh, sure. That's actually almost two different stories in once. But yeah, that was the last story that propelled me into wanting to become an entrepreneur myself. Probably that was almost 9-10 years ago. One of my last secular jobs in the kitchen, not too far away from here. I'm gonna have to save their name. Who's about to send them an invoice if we don't? I remember leaving my house.
Olive Garden. Excuse me.
Exactly. I'll send them an invoice for their free promotions as well. So I remember after my year working there, they told me there was going to be a financial blessing to me because they started me at one wage and they said they wanted me to prove myself. So they had this star system where if you had 4 to 5 stars, you did excellent in the categories, like 5 different categories. I think I got 4 to 5 stars in every category, showing that I was an exemplary employee. Long story short, I was waiting all day to get my my evaluation. Remember leaving the house, I said, honey, you know, give me a kiss today. You know, I'm going in for the evaluation. This is going to be the big one. This is going to be the one that's going to put us in the next income bracket. So I remember waiting all day long for my chance to get called in the office for the evaluation. Finally was my chance. A little bit after lunch, they called me in. And they told me how great of an employee I was, showed me the stars. So at the end of the conversation, they pointed to what my raise was going to be on the product, because they told them don't say what it's going to be. Just point. I guess it's a little less shocking if you don't hear it. If you just get this is going to be what you're going to get right here. And I remember they were pointing, and I was looking at what she was pointing at. I'm like, this must be a mistake, because that can't be what it was. A Buffalo Head nickel, like Ron said. They gave me a 0.05 for the year. Per hour as an increase, like that was some kind of incentive to continue showing up and putting up with the foolery that you have to put up with in, you know, the commercial restaurant business. It either, I tell people all the time, it either drive you to drink or to prayer. And many times drink's a lot closer seemingly than prayer is. And that's just, you know, that's just a little joke on that part. But I knew at that point in time that I had to do something. I remember telling them to keep the nickel raise. I didn't know where I was going, what I was going to do, but I knew something had to be done at this point. That if I worked for a year for a nickel, and I still didn't have enough, to really support my family. It was kind of those robbing Peter to pay Paul, throw the bills in the air. Whatever one comes down first, that's the one you pay, and just hope the other ones don't cut you off or give you a shut off notice. But it was at that point in time where I knew I had to do something. And I remember taking a break. I went out, out back where everyone used to, they call it the stoop. And you'd sit on the stoop, 5-10 minutes, and someone else is waiting their turn, so they're kind of rushing you back in. I'm sitting on the stoop and I'm like, Lord, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but something needs to be done. So I went back in, I told him to keep the nickel raised. I was putting in my 2-week notice. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I was about to do something because that wasn't going to be sustainable, as a man, single, father, with a family. So I remember I prayed about it and the Lord said, what's in your hand? All I had in my hand at that time, was a bunch of CDs that I got from millions of record companies, not millions, hundreds of hundreds of independent producers that wanted me to kind of review their music to get it on the airplane because I worked for an AM station for a while back in the 90s. And I had a bunch of telephone numbers in a black book of all the people that I worked with. And I heard God say, call all these people, tell them you want to start your own radio station. Some will tell you no, some will tell you yes. So that's kind of the process that it was. Some told me no, some told me yes, but I took a handful of yeses. The people said they would, give me some kind of startup money. And we bought our first computers and microphones. And now almost 10 years later, you see what you see, in the studio now. So you can't allow those no's and other people's opinion or assessment of you to hold you back from your God-given dream, goals, or aspirations. I know I couldn't be chained to a time clock because it was just so hectic, and I missed a lot of time with my family, putting in long hours, and it still wasn't adding up financially, mathematically. I'm glad, so very glad, to now, be a business owner myself and understand what not to do if you ever, have a staff and you got to pay them. You don't give them a nickel raise after a year and expect them to be happy about it. So thanks, Ron.
Tell them the other story about the radio station where you were told you never work on radio again.
Sure. Actually, that was actually 720 WWII out of Charlottetown. That was my first. I got my feet wet in media. Actually, our church sponsored a program. It was a half hour that went to an hour. After a year, we got enough support financially that we extended the time. Then a slot opened up at the radio station, and the owner of the radio station, during our church program, I had a 5-minute program and turned into a 10-minute program. It was called Power Insights, and for 5 minutes, you would share as much you could about a certain topic or a text of scripture out the Bible. The owner of the radio station offered me a part-time job there. Part-time landed full-time. From the full-time job, we were probably 10-15% supported by African Americans before I took that job. By 5 years later, we're over 75-80% supported by African American businesses and pastors and professionals. And I remember them giving me 2 months pay. It was New Year's Eve, I think 95, 96, something like that. And they told me it was my last day working. And I'm like, after all I done did, my last day working, what's these checks for? It was like 2 months pay. And they told me it was my last day working in radio. And it was a very, I'm glad it happened now, but looking back, now I'm happy it happened. But at that time, because I thought I was on top of the game, in broadcasting, and I was working full time. I was living a dream because I worked 6-hour days, got paid for 8 hours. It was kind of like cake work. It was easier than working for the state. I worked for the state a year, and it was almost as easy as that was. But long story short, actually, I got a picture of that gentleman that fired me that day. Actually, it's right over here, underneath my cups and glasses over here. If you ever want to take a look at the guy, he's actually right here in this corner. The guy that said I would never work in radio. Again, I sit those there to hold that for me while, I'm still, in broadcasting, to God be the glory. And actually, that man died a year later after they let me go from radio. So sometimes even in the negatives, there's a positive if you can just stay focused and just hold on to, your dream. And understand you're important, you're someone to value. So thank you again, Ron.
Yeah, when one door closes, another one opens.
Yes, and look for the opportunities, and we have it. So I think we're just about out of time. And do we have any calls come in? No calls came in this evening. Okay, does anyone have any final thoughts or anything they want to say before we?
Well, I think that you did an admirable job hosting the program, and I really enjoyed it. I hope that I could contribute something. And I want everybody to look forward next week when Anthony will be hosting the program, Anthony Harrell. And pardon me if I kind of ease my way in as the host, because you are the host. And if there was more time, which I'd like to have you two back, of course you'll be back. And I'd like to hear y'all experiences with Disney World, because I understand both of you visited Disney World. And I've been hearing bits and pieces about all the high prices and everything at Disney World. And that's some information I'm sure will be valuable to a lot of our viewers and listeners who may be planning a trip or thinking about planning a trip to Disney World.
Definitely. Okay, well, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here with us, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Black History and Walt Disney.
Now, send that boy.